A mature woman doesn't respond to touch the way she did at 20, not because she's colder or guarded or harder to impress, but because her nervous system has been educated by life. She has learned, often the hard way, what chaos feels like in a man's body. She knows the texture of rushed hands, the pressure of need disguised as confidence, the way anxiety hides inside over eagerness. So when a man touches her now, her body isn't asking, is this exciting? It's asking something far more fundamental, is this safe? The grounding touch answers that question before she ever thinks it. It's slow, it's deliberate. It has weight to it, not force, but presence. Think of a hand placed gently on her upper back as you guide her through a crowded room, not pushing, not hovering, just there. Or a steady palm resting briefly on her shoulder as you lean in to speak, anchoring the moment rather than interrupting it. Nothing about this touch is rushed. Nothing about it asks for permission through insecurity. It simply arrives calm and certain, and then it leaves when its purpose is complete. What happens in her body is almost invisible, but profound. Her shoulders soften, her breathing deepens. The constant low-level vigilance that mature women carry, earned through experience, begins to quiet. Her nervous system recognizes yours as regulated, stable, and self-contained, and that's the paradox most men miss. The touch that makes her feel most feminine is the one that proves you don't need her response. You're not seeking reassurance through her body. You're offering steadiness through yours. This is why frantic affection backfires with mature women. Quick squeezes, constant contact, hands that linger too long or too often, they register as dysregulation. Even if she smiles, even if she doesn't pull away, her body notes the mismatch. She may feel desired, but she won't feel held. Excited, perhaps, but not settled. And without that sense of being settled, attraction can't deepen. It stays suspended, restless, eventually exhausting itself. The grounding touch is different because it doesn't stimulate, it stabilizes. And paradoxically, stability is what awakens desire at this stage of a woman's life. When your touch communicates that you are comfortable in stillness, that you're not trying to escalate every moment into something more, she feels a rare permission to relax into her own body. That relaxation is not neutral, it's fertile. It's where longing grows. Notice how this kind of touch often appears in men who lead without performing it. The man who pauses before placing his hand, who is aware of space and timing, who doesn't touch to fill silence but to frame it. His touch feels like punctuation, not noise. It says, I'm here, I'm steady, you can rest for a moment. For a mature woman who has spent years managing emotions, her own and others, that offer is intoxicating. And here's the subtlety: grounding touch isn't about technique, it's about state. You cannot fake it. If your body is tense, if your mind is racing ahead to outcomes, if you're monitoring her reaction to decide your next move, your touch will betray you. It will feel thin, performative, slightly off. But when you are settled in yourself, when your breathing is slow, your posture relaxed, your attention anchored in the present, your touch carries that internal order outward. Her body reads it instantly. This is why the simplest gestures are often the most powerful. Opening a door and placing a hand lightly at her back, standing close without crowding, sitting beside her with enough proximity to be felt, but not consumed. These moments don't announce themselves as romantic, and that's precisely why they work. They bypass her defenses. They speak directly to the part of her that decides whether to trust. Trust, for a mature woman, is not ideological, it's physiological. Her body will decide long before her mind does. And once her nervous system begins to associate your presence with calm, something remarkable happens. She starts to seek that calm. She leans in, not just physically, but emotionally. Conversations deepen. Eye contact lingers. Silence becomes comfortable. And attraction, no longer fueled by anxiety or novelty, begins to root itself in something far more durable. This grounding touch also contains restraint. You're not constantly reinforcing it. You don't cling. You don't overuse it. You allow space after contact, letting the echo of the touch do its work. That space is not absence, it's confidence. It tells her you trust the connection enough not to micromanage it. And for a woman who has felt men collapse into her attention or try to secure it prematurely, that restraint feels like relief. Over time, she associates you with regulation, with safety that doesn't suffocate, with desire that doesn't demand. And that combination, safety and desire, steadiness and polarity, is rare. When she feels it, her body responds with a quiet certainty, not infatuation, not adrenaline, but something deeper, slower, and far harder to dislodge. Because when a woman's nervous system exhales around you, her heart doesn't rush forward, it opens. And once that happens, love doesn't fall like an accident. It settles like a decision. By the time a woman reaches emotional maturity, she has been touched in many ways by many men, and most of those touches blurred together into one familiar feeling, being wanted, but not being known. Hands that reached before they understood, affection that arrived before attention. Desire that moved faster than curiosity. So when a man touches her now, her body isn't just registering sensation. It's asking a quieter, more revealing question. Is this touch about me or about him? The intentional touch answers that question with clarity. It doesn't roam, it doesn't grab, it doesn't search for reaction. It lands exactly where it belongs, exactly when it belongs there and nowhere else. A light touch on her forearm as she finishes a thought. Fingers briefly adjusting her bracelet, not because it's crooked, but because you noticed it in the first place. A gentle contact at the elbow as you step aside together, coordinated, attuned. These touches aren't charged with hunger, they're charged with awareness. What makes this kind of touch powerful is not the physical contact itself, but the attention behind it. A mature woman can feel whether your eyes were listening before your hands arrived. She can tell if you were present with her words, her mood, the subtle shifts in her energy. When your touch emerges from that presence, it carries a message far more intimate than lust. I'm here with you. I'm paying attention. You matter in this moment. This is where so many men go wrong. They touch to escalate. They touch to test. They touch to claim territory. And even when the touch is polite, it often feels transactional, an unconscious attempt to move the interaction toward a desired outcome. A mature woman senses this immediately. Her body may tolerate it, but her interest quietly withdraws, because being touched as a means to an end feels strangely lonely, even in closeness. Intentional touch, by contrast, has no agenda beyond connection. It doesn't push the moment forward, it deepens it. It arises naturally from shared attention, from a conversation that has slowed enough to be felt. It's the difference between reaching for her because you want something and touching her because you are already with her. That difference is everything. Notice how this kind of touch often appears when a man is genuinely curious. He listens not to respond, but to understand. He notices the way her expression changes when she speaks about something that matters. He picks up on the rhythm of her speech, the pauses, the places where emotion gathers but doesn't spill. When he touches her, it's almost a continuation of that listening, a physical punctuation that says, I'm still here, I'm following. For a mature woman, this is deeply disarming. She's accustomed to being evaluated, how she looks, how she performs, how she compares. Intentional touch steps out of that economy entirely. It doesn't assess or appraise. It acknowledges, and in that acknowledgement, something softens. She feels less like an object of desire and more like a participant in a shared moment. Attraction doesn't disappear when this happens. It refines itself, it becomes warmer, steadier, more personal. There is also respect embedded in this touch, not the stiff, performative respect that keeps distance, but a lived respect that understands boundaries without needing to announce them. You're not touching the most intimate parts of her body because intimacy hasn't arrived yet. You're not rushing toward familiarity that hasn't been earned. And paradoxically, this restraint creates a sense of being deeply seen. She feels that you're responding to who she is now, not who you hope she'll become for you. This is especially powerful for women who have spent years being over-sexualized or under-understood. When a man touches her in a way that aligns with the emotional tone of the moment, rather than overriding it, her body registers coherence. There's no internal conflict, no need to brace or manage. She can stay present. And presence is the soil in which desire grows into attachment. Intentional touch also invites reciprocity without demanding it. Because it's not fishing for validation, she doesn't feel pressure to respond in kind. And that freedom is precisely what makes her want to. When she reaches back, perhaps unconsciously, it's not obligation, it's resonance. Her body answering yours because it feels recognized, not cornered. Over time, these small attuned gestures accumulate. They create a pattern your nervous system and hers begin to share. She starts to anticipate not your advances, but your awareness. She trusts that when you touch her, it will make sense, that it will arrive from attention, not impulse. And that trust opens a door far more intimate than physical escalation ever could, because being seen is rarer than being desired. And when a woman realizes that your touch doesn't skim her surface, but acknowledges her depth, something in her settles into place. She doesn't feel claimed. She feels chosen. And that feeling, quiet, personal, unmistakable, is what turns attraction into something that can last. In the end, the touch that makes a mature woman fall isn't the one that takes her clothes off. It's the one that makes her feel fully present in her own skin. There is a moment most men misunderstand, and it's the moment right after connection, the pause after laughter, the silence after a meaningful look, the space that opens when closeness has already been established. Instinct tells many men to fill that space, to touch again, to lean in further, to keep the feeling alive through more contact. But for a mature woman, it's often the opposite move that creates the deepest pull, not the continuation of touch, but the gentle, deliberate withdrawal of it. This isn't coldness. It isn't strategy in the shallow sense. It's restraint born of self-command. The slow withdrawal is what tells her that the connection didn't happen because you needed it to, but because it made sense. And that distinction is everything. When your hand leaves her arm first, when you step back slightly after closeness, when you allow silence to breathe instead of crowding it, her body notices. And what it feels is not rejection, but gravity, because emotional gravity doesn't come from pursuit, it comes from contrast, from the awareness that closeness is a choice, not a compulsion. A mature woman has experienced men who cling to connection the moment it appears, who collapse into intimacy as if afraid it might vanish. She has felt how quickly desire turns into pressure when a man can't tolerate space. So when you create closeness and then release it calmly, you signal something rare. I trust myself. I trust this moment. I don't need to trap it. The slow withdrawal works because it preserves polarity. It keeps the interaction alive rather than consuming it. Think of the man who, after a meaningful exchange, smiles, lets his hand fall away, and returns his attention to the wider world without disconnecting emotionally. He doesn't disappear. He doesn't go cold. He simply doesn't hover. That absence of grasping allows her desire to move toward him naturally. Curiosity wakes up, longing has room to form. And here's the subtle truth. The slow withdrawal isn't about denying her. It's about respecting the rhythm of connection. Intimacy has a pulse, approach, contact, release. When you honor that rhythm, the experience feels complete rather than overwhelming. Her nervous system doesn't have to defend itself. Instead, it leans forward internally, wanting to re-enter the space you've just opened. This is especially potent for mature women because they are highly attuned to emotional dependency. They can feel when a man's touch is trying to secure something, approval, reassurance, certainty. When that happens, attraction quietly drains away, replaced by responsibility. But when you withdraw with ease, you communicate that you are already full, that your sense of self doesn't hinge on her reaction. And fullness is magnetic. The slow withdrawal also reframes desire. It tells her that attraction isn't something you extract from her, but something you allow to build between you. You're not rushing toward an outcome. You're letting the moment do its work. That patience suggests confidence not just in yourself, but in her autonomy. You're not trying to corner her into feeling something. You're giving her space to want. Notice how different this feels from emotional withholding. Withholding creates distance through fear. Withdrawal creates depth through trust. Your energy remains warm, open, present, but not insistent. You're still engaged, still attentive, still grounded. You simply aren't clinging. And that distinction is something her body understands immediately. Over time, this pattern creates a powerful internal shift. She starts to associate you not just with connection, but with the freedom to choose it. She feels more herself around you, not less. And that sense of self-expansion, of not being consumed or managed, is deeply seductive to a woman who values her independence and emotional integrity. The slow withdrawal also does something else quietly transformative. It allows her to pursue, not in a performative way, not out of insecurity, but because the space invites her forward. When you don't rush to fill every gap, she begins to notice the gaps herself. She wonders what it would feel like to step closer again, to reinitiate contact, to bridge the space you've left open. And when she does, the connection feels mutual rather than extracted. This is how attraction matures into something heavier, denser, more real, not through constant touch, but through calibrated absence, not through escalation, but through rhythm. You're not disappearing, you're creating contrast, and contrast is what gives closeness its meaning. In a culture that confuses intensity with intimacy, the man who knows when to step back stands out immediately. He feels rare, he feels trustworthy, he feels like someone whose presence enhances rather than consumes. And for a mature woman, that feeling is not just attractive, it's compelling, because the touch she remembers most is not the one that stayed too long, but the one that left her wanting to feel it again.